I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. Welcome into The Locker Room. What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome back, you previous listeners. Welcome into the show, you brand new listeners. So glad you're joining us. Listen, if you want to stay up to date with everything The Locker Room has going on, there's no longer, for those of you who have been with me, you know all the different usernames. There is one name now, one username to get all things Locker Room Podcast. That is TLR Podcast 615. TLR Podcast 615. This episode is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your gym needs. Everything you need from recoveries to supplements to training gear is all found at FNX. Use your promo code TLRHOST. That is TLRHOST for 15% off your order. So, the NBA championship is upon us. We have the Phoenix Suns versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Game 1 starts tonight. Giannis is a game-time decision. Listen, there is not a single person in this entire world that could have ever predicted the Suns versus the Bucks. I know that most people thought the Suns were about to get bounced by the Lakers in round 1, just like I did. You know, injuries did prevail and helped the Phoenix Suns to make it to the NBA championship. Didn't have to face Anthony Davis and LeBron. Didn't have to face Kawhi Leonard. Didn't have to face Jamal Murray along with Jokic. They definitely got some breaks. So no one could have predicted the Suns to be flying out of the West. All right? Plain and simple, most people thought the Jazz were going to beat the Suns even if the Suns were somehow able to squeeze past the Lakers. So the Suns are in the finals, and then the Milwaukee Bucks. Not a single person thought that the Milwaukee Bucks would be able to overcome the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I did. Just saying. I picked them over the Brooklyn Nets. But at the end of the day, the 76ers were playing such good basketball going into the playoffs. I didn't think there was a way that the Milwaukee Bucks would have an easy path enough to get to the championship. Well, they did. Because the Atlanta Hawks came out of nowhere and decided that they're going to go ahead and end up in the Eastern Conference Championship. This is pretty wild the last couple years in the East, right? LeBron leaves the East. You now have a Miami Heat team who made it to the NBA Finals last year, and an Atlanta Hawks team that almost made it this year, and most people predicted them to lose in the first round. So, bunch of crazy stuff is going on in the East. But no one could have predicted this exact matchup. No one could have predicted the Suns versus the Milwaukee Bucks. I had a gentleman actually message me on Instagram, a very nice gentleman, I'm paraphrasing here, said I was a effing moron, that he picked the Suns versus the Bucks, and he had the Bucks winning in 7, and that Giannis was going to not only make his staple as the best player in the NBA, but that Giannis will average 35 in the playoff or in the championship. Okay, I mean, I appreciate the effort there, bud, and I appreciate the fact that you feel so strongly about your pick, but I'm going to call some bullcrap over here. Right? Like, everybody listening at home is going to say the exact same thing. There's no way in hell you had the Milwaukee Bucks with an injured Antetokounmpo pulling it out even over the Hawks, let alone any other team, right? Most people have, like I did, I had them beating the Nets, but I had them getting dominated by the 76ers. The 76ers going into these playoffs were playing the best basketball out of anybody. At least for me, they were. Playing very high level. Joel Embiid is who Joel Embiid is. A great player, and he ended up getting nicked up, slightly torn his meniscus. Ben Simmons disappeared off the face of God's green earth. I'm pretty sure Ben Simmons changed his name to Gene Simmons and is now going to start playing guitar in a rock band. Because I don't know where Ben Simmons decided to go off to, besides he decided to build a bunch of schools overseas with all the bricks that he was throwing up, right? No one could have predicted this. Nonetheless, we have this matchup, so we are going to talk about it. And to the gentleman who was cussing me out on Instagram, I just want to say, hey, I appreciate you listening to the show. It's super cool. I will take the haters and the lovers and the in-betweeners all in one, all right? Thanks for supporting the Locker Room Podcast, even though you hate my guts. Now, on to my predictions for the NBA Finals. I'm going to go Phoenix in 6. I just believe in Chris Paul and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton a little bit more than I do Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, Giannis might not even play tonight. He is a game-time decision. He has that ACL strain, I guess. So Giannis might not even play tonight. And if that's the case, the Phoenix Suns should dominate Game 1. If there's no Giannis, Phoenix has to take full advantage. The problem that Phoenix had against the Los Angeles Clippers is when Kawhi Leonard went down and they didn't have to face a Kawhi Leonard, and when they were at full strength, they weren't taking advantages of those moments. Now, they inevitably dominated the series and won the last game by whatever it was, 25 points, which is what they honestly should have been doing game by game. They were allowing way too much of a relaxed style of defense the first couple of games because there was no Kawhi Leonard out there. In the NBA Finals, you cannot make that same mistake. Now, because there was no inevitable return for Kawhi Leonard, the Phoenix Suns were not only able to prevail, but were able to figure out the Clippers pretty handily and then start beating them pretty good the rest of the way through that series. But you can't do that with the Milwaukee Bucks because we have seen Chris Middleton drop 38. We have seen Chris Middleton dominate and close out an Atlanta Hawks team, even though they were missing Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Phoenix needs to come firing out of the gates immediately. But honestly, what I saw from Chris Paul, I liked more than what I saw from Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton, while he has been good in games, Chris Middleton continually has his hit and miss days. Now, we have seen Chris Paul do that, but Chris Paul also impacts the game way more than Chris Middleton does. They rely on Chris Middleton to be their Klay Thompson. He's the guy that needs to put up 30 a night just so Giannis can relax and do what he needs to do. They need him to stretch the floor. They need him to be knocking down his outside shots. So that way the floor opens up for Giannis to drive and spin and do what Giannis does, which is he's incredible 5 feet and in, right? He's getting better at free throws, but he's incredible 5 feet and in. The problem is I've not seen Chris Middleton do this consistently enough. And also with Giannis being hurt, we have not seen Giannis do this consistently enough. Giannis is always going to get points because he's just ginormous and inevitably he's going to get touches at the rim. But we have not seen both of those players together do it consistently enough for my liking. Whereas on the other hand, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, although Devin Booker hasn't had the 40-point nights every single night, Devin Booker's always going to get you 21 and plus. 21, probably 7 boards, and he's going to play decent defense. 5 boards, decent defense. And Chris Paul, even if he's hurt, we saw it even in the Lakers series, even though he couldn't shoot, even though he really couldn't score, his passing ability, his defensive mindset, that is going to impact the game way more than if he dropped 50 every single night, right? So Chris Paul is a complete package. He's a complete point guard. So I believe in him and Devin Booker over Chris Middleton and Giannis because I've seen Chris Paul and Devin Booker do it more often in these playoffs. I'm not even talking about all time and in careers. I'm talking about in these playoffs. I like that combination more than I like Giannis and Chris. Now, I think another giant deciding factor in this series is going to be DeAndre Ayton. What can DeAndre Ayton do against a Brook Lopez? Now, we know Brook Lopez is a massive human being. He's 7 foot tall, like 270 something pounds. This dude is a freak of nature, and we even saw him when Giannis was hurt drop 33 points in a game against the Atlanta Hawks that they desperately needed to win. So it's not that Brook Lopez is a bad player by any stretch of the means. The problem I think Brook Lopez is going to have is DeAndre Ayton's a lot more nimble, he's a lot more physical, he's a lot more athletic than Brook Lopez. So Brook Lopez is going to have to face a guy that is all around better than he is, a lot younger than he is, and a guy that is never going to stop throwing his body into him. In every single series thus far, Brook Lopez has been the biggest guy, the strongest guy. I'm not so sure that he's the strongest guy against DeAndre Ayton. I'm not so sure that he's going to be quick enough to keep up with DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton's going to bang into you, and he's going to get you 15 and 12, 15 and 15. Every single night. That's just what DeAndre Ayton does. He's going to give you a double-double every single night. Now, Brook Lopez, the same problem I kind of have with the whole Bucks team is Brook Lopez is also very inconsistent. He can give you a game where he's going to have 8 points and 9 boards, or he can give you a game where he has 33 points and 15 boards, right? So what I like about DeAndre Ayton is that DeAndre Ayton is going to have the quickness, the strength, the rebounding, I believe, over Brook Lopez, and I've seen DeAndre Ayton do it every single game thus far. So right now, I'm honestly just sticking with my gut. I'm looking at the teams that I've seen in this year's playoffs, not in their careers, because we've seen guys play out of their mind when it comes to playoff time, right? So in just these playoffs, I like what I'm seeing from DeAndre Ayton a little bit more, and he's going to be, in my opinion, the biggest deciding factor. Because when Giannis inevitably comes back, Giannis and Chris Middleton are going to get points, right? Chris Paul, Devin Booker are going to score points. And while they are essential to winning or losing the games, the X factor really could be what happens at the low post. Can Brook Lopez get, or can DeAndre Ayton get Lopez in a bunch of foul trouble and get him out rebounded and get him frustrated early? And can DeAndre Ayton just continually eat like we saw the entire Clippers series? We saw him do that exact same thing to Ivica Zubac before Zubac got hurt. All he did was bang against him, constantly touching his shot, constantly pushing at him, constantly getting the tough rebounds, constantly getting the putbacks. And Zubac was just destroyed. And then, of course, Zubac ended up getting hurt. But we saw him literally break the will of Ivica Zubac. So can he do that to Brook Lopez? That's what's remained to be seen. Can the Bucks play with any sort of consistency? That is the biggest question out of everything I've said so far. Can the Bucks play consistently? Can Giannis give you 25, shoot 78% because it's in the lane, and make 5 of 7 free throws, 5 of 9 free throws? Can Chris Middleton give you 26, 27 points, a couple boards, and 5 assists? Can Chris Middleton be the ergo fact, probably the number one guy for the first 2 or 3 games if Giannis isn't able to come back until game number 2 or 3? Can he carry this team? Can Brook Lopez finally put his thumbprint on an entire series, not just on a game? The Bucks should have every single opportunity and should have zero excuses if Giannis comes back healthy. That's the biggest problem. But if Giannis is back healthy, they should have zero excuses to lose this championship. But then let's go to the flip side. The Suns have zero excuses. They're the healthiest team left in the playoffs. Chris Paul is playing at an elite level. Devin Booker is who Devin Booker is. Cameron Payne is coming off the bench, giving you strong quality minutes. DeAndre Ayton is a walking double-double. They've got Jay Crowder, who caught fire last game and just plays good stand-up defense. Like, the Suns have every single opportunity to go out there and take this championship. And I would argue the Suns not only should be favorites, but the Suns should win this thing in 5, to be honest. Especially if Giannis Antetokounmpo is not going to be playing for games 1 or 2. Now, we have no idea. They're kind of leaving it a mystery. I don't know if it's on purpose. I would assume it's on purpose, so they know to try and game plan, kind of throw the Suns off. Do you game plan for Giannis, without Giannis? You know, it's a difficult job on that coaching staff if Giannis does end up playing tonight. So I guess that's a little bit of it too. But if Giannis is out, the Suns have every opportunity and should go win this championship. This is a legacy game for Chris Paul. This has to be Chris Paul's series. Now, Devin Booker has to play big as well. Devin Booker's got to be giving you 26 plus every single night. If Devin Booker's not going, Devin Booker has every opportunity to go out there and win the Finals MVP. Without a doubt, he should have his young Kobe moment in these playoffs. First year in the playoffs, it would be a storybook ending, right? He needs to go out there and have big games. But it is all reliant on Chris Paul, his leadership, his playmaking ability. How many turnovers can he limit himself to? Because he does like to turn the ball over. Can he get Drew Holiday a little bit frustrated? Can he attack the defense to start opening up shooting lanes for all these guys and crashing lanes for all these guys? Can he get DeAndre Ayton involved early? That's all going to be on Chris Paul's shoulders. And this is where you step up and shut up. There's no more. Chris Paul has no more excuses. Well, James Harden got hurt. They blew this lead. This person got hurt. This happened when he played for the Clippers. Like, there's no more excuses for Chris Paul. This is his legacy on the line. And great players have to show up in big moments. And I believe that the Phoenix Suns get this done in 6. I believe Chris Paul, he might not win Finals MVP because I really do believe Devin Booker is going to have a series for his young age. I say for the ages, but for his young age, he's going to blow people away and show that he can be a star. He's finally got some days of rest after that broken nose. This is going to be a very, very fun series. I truly believe the Phoenix Suns will be NBA champions at the end. So speaking of Chris Paul, let's talk a little point guards. In fact, let's talk about my top 5 point guards of all time. Now, this list, could add somebody, and we're going to talk about this in just a second. But here are my top 5 point guards of all time: Magic Johnson, Oscar Robertson, Steph Curry, Isaiah Thomas, and then I'm going to go John Stockton. So I think we all can agree Magic Johnson is probably the easy runaway favorite to be the number 1 best point guard of all time. Now, an interesting fact that we won't talk about today because it's such a lot to unpack: LeBron James could make a case that if he were a point guard his entire life, not only would he be the greatest point guard of all time, but he'd be the greatest point guard of all time as well as being the greatest player of all time. So he could have done that, and he's already the top or the number 1 best point guard in the NBA ever since he transitioned to it. Just willy-nilly a couple years ago, came to the Lakers, decided to be a point guard. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the top 5 point guards of all time. We all can agree Magic Johnson is the runaway favorite. There was nothing like LeBron is Magic Johnson, but LeBron can shoot the basketball, right? Like, Magic Johnson wasn't a god-awful shooter, but he also wasn't a very good shooter. Magic Johnson is 7'9" tall, it feels like. Just a ginormous human being. But look at it. He's a 3-time regular season MVP, a 3-time finals MVP, 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA selection. Of course, he's a Hall of Famer, and he's won 5 championships. Magic Johnson is directly behind LeBron James when it comes to the best passer of the basketball of all time. Now, if you don't believe me, even Skip Bayless, who I can't stand, says LeBron James is the most gifted passer of the basketball he's ever seen, the best passer, even over Magic. But Magic had that unique blend of agility. Of course, size doesn't hurt absolutely whatsoever from the point guard position, but that agility, that size, and that court vision. He had court vision that was unparalleled to anything we have seen until LeBron James. And that's not, like I said, this isn't trying to compare to LeBron. That's just a fact that he was the most gifted passer of the basketball anybody had ever seen, and then a guy named LeBron James showed up. And I know everybody wants to talk about, well, Magic couldn't shoot the basketball that well. Well, he still averaged 19 points a game, and he was one of the greatest rim finishers from the point guard position. Of course, we know that the sky hook was kind of a staple of what Magic Johnson used to do all the time. So, Magic Johnson was one of the most diverse point guards we have ever seen. And if Magic Johnson honestly would have played in today's era, he'd still probably be the best point guard of all time. Because if in today's era, they would have trained him how to shoot the ball better. If Lonzo Ball can up his percentage in 2 or 3 years that he's been in the league from whatever it was, like 17% all the way up to like 37%, if Lonzo Ball can do something like that, then we all know Magic Johnson could have developed a knockdown jumper. But we're not going to get into the hypotheticals of what if he didn't. He's still one of the best rim finishers from the point guard position. The unique sky hooks, the unique floaters, the best passer of the basketball, directly behind LeBron James. But from the point guard position, the best passer of the basketball. And, he should be your runaway number 1. My number 2, though, Oscar Robertson. Now, this one's a little bit contentious because a lot of people like to jump on the Steph Curry hype train and just automatically put him at 2. And while I think I don't think Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, I'm going to slide Oscar Robertson. I'm going to leave him here at 2, and here's why. Oscar Robertson was averaging a triple-double in the 60s. This was before we really revered and really honored and cherished, and I think Russell Westbrook has a lot to do with it, just doing it for how many seasons 3 seasons in a row, averaging a triple-double. But he was having triple-double seasons in the 60s, right? And he was third in MVP voting back in the 60s when he was averaging a triple-double. He is another one of those unique blends of very much a LeBron James, Magic Johnson type of body. He was a unique blend of speed, strength, skill from the point guard position. Now, he did end up winning a championship for the Milwaukee Bucks back in the 70s, which is arguably why a lot of people ended up sliding him up there, because he was so pivotal during that run to the championship that Oscar Robertson, that's where he really left his imprint. But, in the 60s, this guy was averaging triple-doubles, and everybody's just brushing him off to the side. Oh, well, he was just more athletic, and the pace of the game was a little bit quicker. I don't care what era you play in. If you accomplish something, if you're one of the very first to start accomplishing something, if you're still accomplishing, like what Russell Westbrook did, while a lot of people bash it and he's just a stat stuffer, that's pretty incredible. To average triple-doubles for 3 straight seasons, that's pretty remarkable. Now, he's maybe on my cuff of my top 10 point guards. I haven't really thought that far back. But Oscar Robertson was doing triple doubles in the 60s, winning a championship with the Bucks in the 70s. Oh, and this guy averaged 25 points a game with 7 rebounds and almost 10 assists. This guy was doing what Russell Westbrook is doing now, and everybody wants to all of a sudden hop on the Russell Westbrook train when he's averaged those triple doubles. So why aren't we hopping on the Oscar Robertson train and making and stapling the fact that this man is the second best point guard of all time? For a point guard to average 25 points a game is pretty great in and of itself. But for him to also average 7 rebounds a game as a point guard and average 9.5 assists, he almost averaged a triple-double back when averaging a triple-double didn't mean what it does today. Now, I would say in the 2010s, when Russell Westbrook, in his earlier years of doing the triple-double, that's when it really meant more. Now Russell Westbrook could have 5 more triple-double seasons, and we're kind of just brushing those off, why I couldn't tell you why that's just such a normal thing that guys like Luka are dropping triple-doubles and everybody's just going, whoa, they're getting better all around. It's like, yeah, but it's still very hard to do. Kevin Durant doesn't drop triple-doubles all the time. Steph Curry doesn't drop triple-doubles all the time. James Harden doesn't drop triple-doubles all the time. It's a very difficult thing to do. But Oscar Robertson, for his run in the 70s, what he did for the Milwaukee Bucks, for him starting to average triple-doubles before triple-doubles were kind of cool, I think that in and of itself would already land him in your top 5. And the fact that this man averaged 25, 7, and 9, I just can't look past that. That is why he's my second greatest point guard of all time. At number 3, Steph Curry here. Now, Steph Curry, I've seen him range from 5 to 4, even all the way as high as 2 in a couple of analyst journals. I'm going to go number 3 here. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think Steph Curry has had a very, very good coach in Steve Kerr. He's had a very good team around him, mainly most of his career. The early years of Golden State, I got it. But he still has had a running partner in Klay Thompson. I mean, that is his Scottie Pippen that he's had since the beginning of time with Draymond Green. That's his Dennis Rodman. So it's very similar to the 90s Bulls in the fact that Steph Curry has usually had guys around him that have made his game a whole lot easier. What Steph Curry has done for me, though, is he's revolutionized the game of basketball. Steph Curry, we all know, is the greatest three-point shooter of all time. He's the greatest shooter of all time. I don't care what you say. Anybody that can consistently shoot the ball from 35 plus, as accurate as he does, as consistently as he has done throughout his entire career, is enough to land him all the way up at number 3 in my book. Not including the championships that he has won. Not including the fact that he's averaged 25 points a game. Now, of course, his assist and rebounding is not very high. He's only around like 5 or 6 rebounds a game, I think. No. Yeah, 5 or 6 rebounds a game. Somewhere around 7 assists. I think it's 6.8, 6.9 when I was looking at the numbers before the show. So he doesn't average a whole lot in those categories. I mean, 7 assists is still a lot. But Steph Curry is mainly known for being the greatest shooter of all time. And arguably, and this is a tough one for me to even say, is arguably the greatest scoring point guard of all time. Now, there's a couple of guys like Allen Iverson, Steve Nash is up there. There's a couple of guys that could straight put the ball in the bucket. But as far as the best shooting point guard, he runs away with that. Arguably the best scoring point guard of all time. He's won a couple of championships. Now, like I said, to give him his credit, he has played pretty well throughout those championship runs, but he's also had Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, he's had guys that know how to play basketball and play it at a very high level. But for me, just his impact alone in the shooting aspect from the point guard position, he has made point guards diverse across the board. It used to be, point guards could shoot enough, and they were okay at it. If you look at the Oscar Robinsons, if you look at the Magic Johnson, now Magic Johnson wouldn't be revered as a shooting point guard, but Steph Curry has made the point guard a must-have position in the NBA. There's very few positions that are must-haves. I would argue that the point guard position and the shooting guard position might be the 2 most important positions in all of basketball right now. Your wing players are now your most important. Now, unless you have a LeBron James, a Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, guys like that, when you have those small forwards or power forwards, however you want to label them, yes, of course, they're the most important players, but I would argue that your wing players are arguably your most important right now because your point guards not only now have to be able to pass the ball accurately, they not only have to be able to drive to mix up and open up the game a whole lot more for your teammates, but they've got to be able to shoot consistently. You're going to see it this weekend. You're going to have guys like Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton versus Chris Paul and Devin Booker. The shooting guards and the point guards are going to all have to start shooting the ball consistently in order to open up Giannis, in order to open up DeAndre Ayton. It's just how it is in today's game. So Steph Curry not only has made the point guard position probably the most important, in my personal opinion, in basketball right now, but he has made the point guard position important in the sense that the point guard position can now average 25, 26 points a game and impact the game way more than they used to. I mean, we've seen point guards, hell, look at Oscar Robertson. What he did was amazing in the 70s, averaging 25 points a game, but Oscar Robertson at the end of the day was not the sole reason that they won the championship. So they were allowed, point guards could get 25 points a game back in the day, and it wouldn't mean as much as today's game. Now, if you have someone like Kyrie, if you have someone like Steph Curry, if you have someone like, name the point guard, Damian Lillard, if these guys are going off for 28 and 29 plus, 30 plus, now you're having to sync up or stay up instead of sync back. Now the lanes are open for other guys. So he has made the point guard position arguably the most important in basketball, which lands him at number 3. At number 4 for me, Isaiah Thomas. Now, Isaiah Thomas is one of those very polarizing point guards in all of NBA history. He's one of those guys that you either love him or you hate him. He's Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley is him as if Patrick Beverley was talented, could shoot the basketball, was a better dribbler, was a better defender. But he's that kind of a guy. He's somebody that literally was voted like, we don't want him on the dream team. We don't want him to come to the USA to represent the Olympics, even though he was one of the best players in the NBA at the time because people hated him that much. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, all these guys said, hell no, he's not coming on our Olympic team. So you hated playing against him. You hated him in general. But if you were on his team, if you were part of the Bad Boy Pistons, you loved him. He led you to 2 championships, one of the quickest point guards we have ever seen with his first step, and could shoot the absolute lights out. He was also the shortest guy to ever win a Finals MVP, standing at 6'1" tall. So the fact that people bash Isaiah Thomas so badly in today's day and age, go back and look at the film. Go back and watch him. Isaiah Thomas is one of the most gifted point guards of all time. Just because you don't like him as a person, just because he rubs people the wrong way, does not mean Isaiah Thomas wasn't special. He was one of the quickest point guards we have ever seen. He could shoot the absolute lights out, tough as nails, a very good defender, and he was one of the best scorers in the NBA right up there, and he was sending people like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. He was sending people like Michael Jeffrey Jordan home from the playoffs. The Bad Boy Pistons were bouncing arguably the greatest player of all time, led by Isaiah Thomas. So I don't want to hear Isaiah Thomas doesn't belong in the top 5 when he's sending the so-called phony GOAT and Michael Jordan on home. Isaiah Thomas, my 4th best. At number 5, John Stockton. Now, this is where it's going to get interesting. We're going to talk about this in just a second. John Stockton is revered as one of the best point guards of all time. Also, for those of you who didn't know, and I didn't know this, I didn't realize this dude played all the way up into 2003. So I thought I was insane when I saw that. I was like, all right, maybe I'm just reading this wrong. No, this dude played from 1984 to 2003. It just seems like it was so long, like that name, for some reason, is it me? Or does that name feels like it is 1,000 years old? Like it feels like John Stockton, who's the dude who invented basketball? Oh, Naismith, something like that, right? Right? Whatever the hell that guy's name was. It was like he had open baskets and like a bud of lettuce or peaches. I don't know. You all remember it from your history classes where they taught you, and you all remembered it. It was like, oh, the dude who had the fruit and made basketball. Like, when you hear that guy's name, you hear John Stockton, you're like, oh, those guys must have been around at the exact same time. John Stockton must have shot the bud of lettuce just as good as he did the basketball in 2003, right? But so that's just an interesting fact. I didn't know he's all the way up to 2003. Of course, 10-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA selection. But what's more important for me is that he was an all-defensive selection, and of course he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's an all-defensive selection. Now, he didn't win a championship. That is why I keep bumping him down. But he was an incredible defender from the point guard position. Arguably, when you look at the top 5 of any position, each one of them brought a unique perspective to the game, a unique ability to the game that left their imprint in history, and that was John Stockton. He didn't turn the ball over a whole lot. He was a very strong physical defender of the basketball. And from the point guard position, especially all the way up from the 84 probably to 2005, that's when you had the reign of some incredible point guards. And along with his old school name was just straight old school basketball. Strong defender of the basketball from the point guard position. You know, he knew how to do his defensive slides. Averaged 10.5 assists a game. So he was a true point guard in today's era, or what we would have known as a true point guard back in the day, which was somebody who played defense, somebody who didn't turn the ball over, and somebody who assisted the ball. He got it to the scorers. So while he only averaged 13 points a game, John Stockton was an incredible passer of the basketball, right up there with the Magic Johnsons and LeBron Jameses of the world, but he also had that strong defensive mindset, which brought him all the way up to number 5 for me. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If Chris Paul wins this NBA championship, now, I don't care if he wins Finals MVP at all. He was in MVP conversation this year at 36 years old. I don't care if Devin Booker drops 50 a game and wins the Finals MVP. More power to him. If Chris Paul wins this NBA championship, he will then jump John Stockton. He will be my number 5 point guard of all time. He will have averaged more points a game, just about as many assists, more rebounds, shot it on a higher percentage, a better defender, more steals. He literally has everything you would want in a top 5 guy of all time. Like Chris Paul, all he's missing, that one piece he's missing, is the hardware. He's missing the NBA championship. This is from you go to any sports reporter, any sports talk show host, they will say the same thing. All it takes for Chris Paul to become a top 5 point guard of all time is to claim one championship. The biggest critique on Chris Paul his entire career is he can't get it done in clutch moments. He's had 2 series where he's been up 2-0, lost those series. He's had another series where he was up 3-1. I don't care who gets hurt, lost that series. He had another series where he ended up getting hurt, and they were up on Golden State with Kevin Durant, which if they would have won that, they would have gone to the championship and probably won. That would have been arguably one of the greatest feats of all time. But he just gets hurt, fails here, blows this lead. So this is his moment. This is Chris Paul's biggest burden. If he can claim this championship, Chris Paul will be the 5th best point guard of all time. And like I said, I don't believe it matters if he wins the Finals MVP. I think it matters that he wins this championship and plays at a good level. Now, he can't average 3 points a game, 9 turnovers, and then they squeak by against the Bucks, and then everybody be like, oh, whoa, he's right up there. Because then at that point, you just got along for the ride. He's got to be a major factor. He does not have to be Finals MVP, but he has to be a major factor. He has to be a very strong leader, and he has to claim this championship. And that would round out my top 5. I would drop John Stockton down to 6. And later on down the road, we can discuss maybe some other guys that I'd put up there in my and finish out my top 10. But there it is, my top 5 point guards of all time. And with a little asterisk at the end, if Chris Paul can win the championship, my new top 5 point guards of all time. On to the final topic of today. Also, before we get into this final topic, because I know a lot of you, when it gets towards the end, when I'm saying my goodbyes and thank yous, I know you shut it off because I do the exact same thing. But if you're still with me and if you're a listener, hey, listen, feedback is always critical for me. All right? If you enjoy the show, if you don't like the show, if you think there's some things that you would like to have improve or whatever, be sure to follow me on my social media and let me know. You can also email me. It's part of my social media. That's why it's so important that you follow the TLR Podcast 615 on Instagram or whatever platform you use, because my email is attached to it. You can get in touch with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. It really would mean a lot. Now, on to my final point. And by the way, please don't be the guy that just emails me a bunch of swear words, okay? Because I won't read it. And at some point, I think I'm just going to start posting those up on my stories on Instagram. And I know you probably wouldn't be following me, but it'd be really, really funny for everybody to see whoever you are wigging out, just because it's funny for me to post that. But let's get to a little bit of UFC. Now, Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor, the trilogy fight is happening this Saturday. One of the most important fights in MMA history for both of these guys. It's very rare that both guys have a legacy fight on the same night. It's very rare that both of those guys have a legacy fight on the same night, and that fight just so happens to be against each other. It's very rare for that. Conor McGregor, we know what he is. He is a two-time champion. He is one of the greatest strikers of all time. He is one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. But the second Conor McGregor decided to go fight Floyd Mayweather was the second Conor McGregor sold his soul and never was the same. I don't care that he came back and dominated Cowboy Cerrone. We've seen Cowboy Cerrone literally lose every single one of his fights as of lately. It seemed like those elbows against that shoulders that Conor gave him when he knocked him out kind of just put Cowboy over the edge into his retirement home, driving his Ford F-250 the rest of his life and not fighting anymore. I'm talking about the Khabib fight. I'm talking about his last fight with Dustin Poirier where he got finished in the second round. We have not seen the same Conor McGregor, and I know I come out here and talk about it all the time. Well, all Conor has to do is XYZ. All Conor has to do is XYZ. The problem is Conor has to want to do XYZ. Conor has to want to fight at a high level. Conor has to want to train at a high level. Conor has to want to be disciplined. He has to, and listen, it's hard. When you have $100+ million in the bank, it's hard not to just wake up and want to drive your Ferrari and, sit at a cafe and drink your favorite espresso and spend $100 on a lunch and just relax for the day. It's hard not to want to go out on your yacht. Listen, if I had a yacht, I would be a fat, lazy piece of crap. I mean, my wife would probably say that's not much different than I am now, but that's exactly what I do. You think I'm going to get up and train my ass off for the MMA? No. You think I'm going to pay all of this training and pay all my trainers and my coaches and dedicate all this time to then go get my face kicked in? You got me mixed up with someone else. And we keep saying this, and I say this every time Conor goes to fight. All Conor has to do is really dedicate himself to fighting again. All Conor has to do, and that's really all he has to do. The problem is when you're at the top, you don't think you need to go any further. You don't think you need to train any harder. You don't think you have anything new to learn. One of the greatest things I have ever heard, and this comes from a coach that I would consider my biggest mentor into my own coaching and my personal lifestyle, my biggest influencer. He said the same thing to me. He goes, if you're ever at a point when you're coaching, Jacob, that you think you've learned it all, you're probably not a good coach anymore. And he's right. If you're at a point in your life where you just say, hey, I'm at the top, there's nothing more I can gain, there's nothing more I can learn, then guess what? Your effort is always going to diminish. Your attitude is always going to diminish. Your energy is always going to diminish because you believe there is nothing else to be taught, nothing else to be learned, nothing else to gain from what you're doing. That's the same thing Conor McGregor did. He got all that money. He got his validation. He was at the top. He was the two-time champion. He went 8 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. He was being talked about on every single radio station, newspaper, magazine, television show, Netflix, whatever it was. He was on it all. He was at the top. But can Conor McGregor humble himself enough, step away out of the limelight, get away, and I think, honestly, selling his company will do him justice in the future because he did sell Proper 12, his majority ownership, so he's not having to run that again. But if Conor McGregor steps out of that spotlight, becomes vulnerable again, and says, listen, I need to be coached. I need to be taught why I'm being trained. I think Conor McGregor has a real shot in this fight again. I think the biggest reason Conor has lost as of late, he's not disciplined when it comes to cardio. When he goes to the gym, he's there to put on a nice little highlight show. He's not putting in the work and the changes that need to be made for his next opponent. So if Conor can do a complete 180 of what he's been doing the last, let's say, 2 years, ever since he picked up boxing, and can become that fluid fighter, can become that Conor McGregor that we know that finished Dustin Poirier the first time they fought, and finished him handily. It wasn't even close. If he can become that guy, I believe Conor McGregor could see a belt shot again very soon. Now let's go over to Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier really doesn't have much that he has to work on. Dustin Poirier is not here is not the guy who has to make the adjustments, who has to make the attitude adjustments, who has to make the work ethic adjustments. Dustin Poirier is the guy right now, for sure. I mean, he was going on like 8 and 9 fight win streaks ever since it seemed like he had a couple of really bad losses. Dustin Poirier's done a complete 180, and he's turned it forward. Dustin Poirier is a great striker. He's got very good leg kicks. He's a very good wrestler, to be honest. I know I wouldn't call it very good, but he's a good wrestler as well. All Dustin Poirier did in his last fight against Conor McGregor, in fight number 2, is this is something that I think is very important that not a lot of people talk about. He took Conor McGregor down early and tired out Conor McGregor. And problem with Conor McGregor is he did not spend enough time on his cardio and enough discipline on his cardio. Therefore, the second Conor gets tired, he gets lazy, he gets flat-footed, boom. Conor gets caught with a bunch of leg kicks because his front leg is bearing so much weight. Next thing you know, 1-2, bam, Conor's down. So Dustin Poirier knows what he's doing. He's got the technical skill to beat Conor McGregor. He's got the technical skill to hold the belt at 155. The thing with Dustin Poirier is, and we've seen him turn the corner, we've seen him beat Conor McGregor in the second fight. The thing with Dustin Poirier is he puts himself in harmful situations just to land the shots that he wants to land. And we saw Conor McGregor rock him in their second fight. We saw Conor McGregor catch him, boom, with the left, straight up with the right. Next thing you know, Dustin Poirier is a little bit wobbly. So Dustin Poirier did something very smart, which is started backing up, chopping at some leg kicks, and even if Conor McGregor was coming at him, he just kept trying to keep his distance. And Conor slowly eventually got tired because he had to defend the takedown, and that's where Dustin Poirier, and especially his coaching staff, who doesn't get talked about enough as one of the best in MMA right now, that's where Dustin Poirier succeeds so well. He made that adjustment this time. He started backing up and throwing leg kicks. He started shooting for the takedowns and get Conor tired. So Dustin Poirier, he has all the right tools, but can he stay smart enough when it gets heated? Because we saw him almost get caught by Conor McGregor early in that round. Conor, bam, bam. Next thing you know, Dustin Poirier is wobbling a little bit. Like I said, he's very smart at getting away from it. But I don't believe that Conor McGregor is approaching this fight like he did the last fight. It seemed like Conor McGregor was in this weird lull, was in this weird, just not himself. This time he's off of the social media. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because we've all only seen Conor McGregor stay on the social media. He's not, and this is I think what's also very important, he's not at home with his family in Ireland. He doesn't have all the distractions. It's Conor McGregor only. That's what's making this fight so interesting is we're getting a Conor that we've not seen at all, which is what we have been saying. It seems like every single time he fights, we're getting a Conor McGregor that's well over the hump, doesn't care about MMA. We're getting a Conor McGregor that's a savage. We're getting a Conor McGregor that's an angry psycho who's, getting arrested and stuff. Like, it just seems like we're getting every which version of Conor McGregor that lives inside of him. So Dustin's got to be careful because I don't believe Conor McGregor is going to sit back this fight. This is going to be a 1-2 rounder, probably. I don't see it going the distance. I'm sure it could. I just don't see this thing going 5. We all want it to go 5. We want a slugfest. We want both guys to come out looking like champions. And we want a great fight. But I don't believe that that's going to happen. So can Dustin Poirier stay disciplined enough when the fight gets heated? Because he likes to take a lot of risky shots and a lot of risky angles to land the killer. And what's great about that is when it lands like it did in the last fight, it lands. It's done. Lights out, blades of glory. I was going to say, it should say roads of glory, whatever. It's amazing, right? But when it doesn't, you get rocked. You get knocked out. In the very first fight against Conor McGregor, in their first matchup, all Conor McGregor did was throw counters. And Dustin Poirier put himself in a vulnerable enough situation to leave his face wide open for Conor. Boom, bam, done. Knockout. The second fight, he did that the first round. He was smart enough to back away because it clicked in his brain like, I've seen this exact same movie before. Conor gets the 1-2 and I'm knocked out in the first round. Next thing you know, I'm out of the top 5, right? He's seen that before. It's same movie, just years apart. Now, this third fight, I don't believe we're going to see that Conor McGregor that's going to stay laxed when that happens. But we are going to see the same Dustin Poirier. Why? Dustin Poirier believes he really doesn't have to do too much to change the outcome of what happened last fight. It's Conor's job to see what Dustin Poirier is bad at. It's Conor's job to go out there and beat Dustin Poirier. It's Conor's job to go out there and make Dustin Poirier feel pressure. It's Conor's job to go out there and make Dustin Poirier's calf kick insequential. That's all Conor's job. The pressure's all on Conor. All Dustin Poirier has to do is go out there and fight his normal fight. But like I said, if he is not smart enough this fight, if he gets too cocky, and that's something that we have seen happen, How many times have you played basketball at the Y and you're getting a little cocky, and then the team of scrubs comes in, all these little kids, and they somehow beat you because you start getting laxed? So if Dustin Poirier doesn't get laxed, if he stays focused, I believe we're in for a very good fight, and I could see either one of these guys walking away with the belt. I'm never going to go against Conor McGregor because I say this on the Puncher's Chance all the time, which we've got some news about that coming up. But, I'm a Conor nut rider. I'm going to go with Conor till the day that I die. And I hope that he doesn't disappoint me this time. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode is in the books. Listen, if you love us, even if you like us a little bit, share us with a friend. Make sure to follow us on our social media, TLR Podcast 615, the only name that you need to get connected. Listen, I appreciate you all. I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.